What is clear to me is that Putin, the Russian government, the Russian military, they're not only attacking Ukraine, they're actually attacking a democracy and a way of life. The way that we live in Europe, we live in nation states, we have democracies, we have elections, we have the rule of law. Putin is trying to create or recreate some sort of empire. It's a throwback in terms of something that many of us in Europe thought was gone. It's still here. The war, the playbook is extremely brutal. It's the same one he used in Chechnya in 2000. This is a stark reminder that we as democracies have to be extremely vigilant. And it also means, and it's something that we are relearning, that we also have to be strong, strong also militarily. So what Putin has done, ironically for him, he has pushed together the European Union. We are extremely united. And he has pushed together the NATO alliance and actually reinvigorated it, giving it a new lease on life.
But what we're seeing in Ukraine is very specific. There is a military intervention. There are troops on the ground. But Russia could potentially hit NATO countries in terms of misinformation, in terms of cyber attacks. Are you worried that Russia's next move towards NATO could actually be on that front, could be on misinformation and on cyber attacks?
Well, my country has been living under the guise of misinformation for 30 years. It's something that we have always seen Russia is doing. It's something we've argued to our friends and neighbors that they are actually doing this. We see them now doing it on a global level. And the cyber attacks are already starting. We can see still smaller scale, hitting many countries around Europe, possibly further than that. So, of course, in terms of our defense capabilities, we have to think about conventional defense. So Putin still uses very conventional tanks, etc., defense against that kind of an attack, and also to step up our cybersecurity. And this is an area where within the European Union, there's a lot of value added to coordinated action, and also among NATO members. Yes, all of the fronts are being opened by Putin, and we have to be, first of all, aware that they're happening, and there seems to be a very, very broad awareness of this, and then stepping up to the challenge of making sure that we have the capability to deal with that.
So Russia is already attacking NATO countries via cyber attacks?
I suppose on some level you could say that, but it's a different kind of attack. It's in many ways more insidious. Also, the disinformation is very insidious because it starts to spread false narratives and lies. And in any population, in any country, there are people who are more susceptible to that. This is a challenge for all of us. It's also a sign of the technologies. I mean, we have social media now, where 20 years ago we didn't have something like that. And now this is how public opinion is formed. So we have to find ever better ways to counter it.
Given the threat posed by Russia, do you think that NATO should perhaps increase the defense spending target to above 2% of the national GDP? Should that 2% be increased?
Well, first, it's important that all NATO members meet the 2%, and ever more also European countries who had been behind, now they're stepping up. There are also some others that are increasing spending. So first, everyone has to meet the 2%. In Latvia, we're now going to hit the 2.5%, the same with my other Baltic neighbors. Should we all look to the future to probably increase that? I think the answer is yes. But let's first get the 2%. And the second point is we have to invest wisely. And wisely means in a coordinated manner. Because what we need ever more battle-ready, not only brigades, but actually divisions also in Europe, that combine all aspects of defensive warfare, so air, sea, land, short range, long range, etc. And we have to make sure that we have units which are capable and also mobile. This is something that we are in the process of reinforcing. The more countries that increase their spending, the easier it will be for all of us to do this. And I think the biggest signal the biggest positive signal coming out of Europe is that Germany has now decided to increase to 2%. With the biggest economy in Europe, that's a lot of additional military spending in terms of actual euros.
Tell me about how you look at this new security order, because Jens Stoltenberg has already mentioned on how these tensions with Russia are likely to be the new normal. So this is likely to continue going forward. Are you worried that that's the case, and how do you see this new security order? Describe it to me.
The closest way that I can describe it, it seems that a new Iron Curtain is probably going to be descending in Europe. Its positioning has changed geographically, but it looks like Putin is leading his country in the same way. He is forcing the world to isolate him. It is correct what we're doing in terms of the economic sanctions. We have to isolate in order to force change of behavior. But Putin's reaction seems to be, at least publicly, go ahead, I don't care. So at best, and this is a best case scenario, there could be a long-term standoff between Western democracy and the rule of law and Putin's Russia with the rule of might and the rule of force.
How is this going to end?
Again, it seems that right now one of the best case scenarios is a longer term standoff. And I think that we'll have this standoff until eventually Russia will change. We know that all empires fall apart. Was it the Roman Empire? Was it the German Empire, the British Empire, the Soviet Empire? Now Putin is trying to create another empire. But his empire or his rule is based upon fear, coercion, and intimidation. That can last for a generation, it can last for longer. Eventually it will fall apart. And from that, what I think the world is hoping, and is what we're waiting for in Europe, is for a democratic Russia to emerge. I'm convinced that eventually that will happen. I certainly hope that I will witness that happening.